Namaste and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this NENCID talk program. My name is Jigyasha Rai Yangkhurung, an executive committee member of Nepal National Committee on Irrigation and Drainage, NENCID. NENCID is a national committee for ICID, International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage, and Nepal has been a member of ICID since 1973. ICID is a leading scientific, technical, and professional not-for-profit international organization with a vision of a water-secure world free of poverty and hunger through sustainable rural development. It is a knowledge-sharing platform, so it brings together various stakeholders and multidisciplinary professionals to deliberate on technical, agronomic, socio-economic, environment, and managerial complexities for development, management, and operation of irrigation, drainage, and flood management works. Therefore, in order to share and exchange knowledge and experiences among these various professionals, NENCID has studied this NENCID talk program as a part of irrigation and drainage talk series. In this series, an event is held every second Tuesday of every month according to Bikram Sambat calendar. However, in order to contribute to Nepal's representation in UN Water Conference, we have preponed this today's event by 2 weeks. Today's event is the 21st episode of the series, and the announcement for the 22nd episode will be shared at the end of this event. So please stay with us till the end. Please follow our Facebook page, Nepal National Committee on Irrigation and Drainage, and subscribe NENCID Nepal on YouTube. And please do not forget to check the past episode of this talk series in our channel. If you have any suggestions, comments, and feedbacks, please write to us at nencid.nepal@gmail.com. Now, before starting the main event, I would like to state some of the ground rules. Today's session will be an hour long. First 45 minutes will be a discussion with the panelists, which will be followed by question, answer, and discussion round. During the session, please kindly mute your microphone. And we encourage you to maximize the use of chat box to ask questions or to give comments or to express your viewpoints. In order to share your opinions verbally, please unmute yourself before speaking. Now, with this brief background, I'd like to invite Professor Dr. Vishnu Pandey from Institute of Engineering, Pulchowk Campus, who is also an executive committee member of NENCID, to introduce the panelists and moderate the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jigyasha ji. Namaskar and good morning, good evening, and different time zone to all of you. It's my really great pleasure to moderate today's session with the eminent panelists on the theme of what does the UN 2023 Water Conference means to Nepal. This is the context is that Nepal is also participating with the Secretary of Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation and other delegates in this UN conference, which is happening after nearly half a century, with the first one held in 1977. So in this context, how can we make the presence of Nepal impactful in the international platform like this? How can we raise our agenda in a very clear way, and what needs to be prioritized, and what strategies the government delegates should take to ensure that we communicate clearly in a better way so that we inform, influence, and try to generate resource from the international community. With that objective, we try to set this event right before our delegate departs to the conference. So we really thank all the panelists for agreeing to be a part of this event and sharing your thoughts to provide inputs to our delegates. This is a part of the, series of events. Just yesterday, we had a stakeholder consultation with the relevant water resource and related experts in Nepal on the position paper that we are developing. Government of Nepal is developing to guide the delegates. So today's discussion and also the key points would also contribute to define the position paper better so that it will be helpful to the government of Nepal to position its stance in the international platform. Very brief background of the event. I would like to introduce our panelists. We have 6 panelists today in alphabetical order. Ajay Dixit, next slide please, who is a well-known water resource expert in the Nepal and also beyond, who has a lot of international experience of participating in the forum like this and also contributed a lot in shaping the water landscape of the Nepal. He used to be he's a senior advisor at the Institute for Social and Environmental Transition, we call ISET, Nepal. He's a senior fellow at South Asia Watch on Trade and Environment and visiting professor at the Kathmandu School of Law. Previously, Dixit has held position at the Institute of Engineering, Kathmandu, and as chair of the Nepal Water for Health, among others. He has published extensively in journals and is author of a basic water science book, which is a very simple, easy to understand book, useful to engineering students and beyond. Mr. Dixit's research interests include water resource management, river health, political economy of irrigation and hydroelectricity, among others. He has worked on issues of energy development and debate on dams. His current research involves disaster risk management, mainstreaming climate resilient, and adaptation from systematic perspective. He currently also curates the digital platform called South Asia Nadi Samad. The other panelist we have is, next please, Professor Dr. Kumud Acharya. Thank you so much for making your time available despite a very, very busy schedule, which we all can understand. He is currently the president of the Desert Research Institute located in Nevada and USA. He is in this role since September 2020 and leads over 450 scientists, engineers, and research support staff who rank among the top in the world in their specialties. As a research professor in ecological engineering, Dr. Acharya has led pioneering work to help local and state water managers in Nevada to address the aquatic invasive species threatening the lakes. His 20+ years of environmental study have blended both traditional research on the health of rivers, lakes, and wetland with applied research to better understand the impact of climate change on aquatic ecosystem across Nevada and throughout the world. His academic excellence is demonstrated through over 100 peer-reviewed papers and contribution as an associate editor of reputed journals, for example, Journal of Water Resource Research and Journal of American Water Resource Association. Similarly, we have other panelists. Next, please. Dr. Manohara Khadka, who is expert in water resource governance and currently leading IWMI office. IWMI stands for International Water Management Institute office in Nepal as a country representative. She's also the CGIAR country convener for Nepal. She is also a CGIAR country convener for Nepal. She is a natural resource management professional by training. She brings development, cooperation, governance, research, people, and programs management expertise in the water and natural resource sector. She does social science research on policy, governance, gender, and social inclusion issues of water, climate change, and natural resource management. Prior to joining IWMI, she was at the Embassy of Switzerland in Kathmandu, looking after natural resources management portfolio and gender and social inclusion advisory roles. Dr. Khadka received a master's degree in management of natural resources and sustainable agriculture from Norwegian University of Life Science in Norway, and a PhD from the International Institute of Social Studies of Erasmus University, The Hague, in the Netherlands. She has published extensively in peer-reviewed journal articles and guidelines, policy briefs, and blogs. Similarly, we have other panelists. Next slide, please. Other panelist is Mr. Prakash Kumar Suvedi. He's also former ambassador of Nepal and expert in international relationship. He used to be ambassador of Nepal to Austria with concurrent accreditation to Slovenia, Croatia, and Greece. He also served as a permanent representative of Nepal to the United Nations office in Vienna, to the UN Industrial Development Organization, and others. He joined foreign service in Nepal along back in 1988 and retired in 2022 after contributing in various capacity within Nepal and abroad. His services outside Nepal includes Nepalese embassy in Moscow, Riyadh, Copenhagen, and Vienna. He has extensive experience in the areas of international relationship, diplomacy, and governance, and he has a great understanding of the UN system, which we are expecting to hear from him later today. And the other panelist we have is Rajendra Kshatri, sir. Next, please. Who is a former chief secretary and expert in international water law. Since retiring from his 3-decade-long tenure in government service in 2017, he has been lending his expertise as a freelance consultant Additionally, he enjoyed as a visiting faculty lecturing young and capable law students of Kathmandu University on water and energy. Earlier, he had also participated as a high-level debate panelist on the challenge of improved global freshwater governance and the UN International Water Courses Convention held in Stockholm, Sweden in 2008 during the World Water Week 2008. And last but not the least, we have Suman Prasad Sharma sir with us. He is a former secretary of the government of Nepal who has served in several ministries, including for Ministry of Finance, Energy, and Communication. He is by training an environmental engineer, and by his sectoral experience, he is a WAS expert. He joined the Department of Water Supply and Sewerage of Government of Nepal in 1984 and served in the WAS sector for more than 28 years. He has participated and made presentation in several international forums for water and sanitation and water resource planning. He is currently working as a freelance consultant in water, energy, and financial services for agencies like World Bank, ADB, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among others. Of course, our panelists today have a lot of experience. They cannot be covered within the few lines or a couple of minutes. I hope it gives some glimpse of their expertise to our audience. With this very brief background, could you please stop sharing the slide? Now, I would like to go directly to the panelists. First of all, thanking you all once again. And I will start with a couple of questions in the beginning, and then we'll take a round of questions from the one or two round of questions from the audience. And finally, again, we will provide opportunity to have your final remarks on the overall topic. First question I'm putting to Ajay Dixit. There are, this year's conference, UN conference is focusing on 5 themes. Primarily seems like focused on SDG 6, but of course, SDG 6 related to water is not only the SDG 6, actually all 17 SDGs are related to water. So in this context, which content should be prioritized in this conference by Nepalese delegates? Why and how, based on your experience and learning in the last many years? Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Pandey. Thank you very much for your introduction and my greetings and namaskar to all the panelists. And of course, this is a very important meeting. And again, thank you very much for organizing and giving this time. Well, when I talk about water, everything in water is important, you see, and we all come from our own perspective. On one hand, you have the very deep ecological school of thought, and the other you have the sort of the international perspective. Now, each of them seem to be important. Now, this particular UN conference kind of brings me to my own journey as a first student of water. 1977 was when I graduated as a civil engineer. I had no understanding of the complexity of water supply. Water supply for me was, designing a pipe, delivering water, equations, Colebrook and White equation was something that I worked on. And then, of course, that was when the Mar del Plata conference was organized, right? That was 74, almost 46 years ago. That was the era when I think in Nepal, we were very much perhaps down there in terms of what we knew, what we achieved, what we had done, and the challenge of water supply. So in this last 46 years, we have come a long way. Now, with this preamble, let me just put the fact that I'm going to focus a little bit on the WASH part, the water supply and sanitation, perhaps put something in the context. As I said, in 1970s, we had very little population who had access to basic water supply and sanitation. The objective of the International Decade in 1980 was to minimize drudgery, particularly for women, and then provide water, safer water, by identifying sources which were not contaminated. Over the last 46 years, if we look, we have made tremendous progress, over the years in terms of, how much coverage we have. But then if you kind of dig a little bit underneath, what we find is that fecal contamination continues to be a major irritant. If I look at some of the figures, it's about 85% of the drinking water. sort of supplied at household level. 1/3 of the systems that we have built only are properly functional. Now, that's one challenge that we need to recognize. Now, if I go to sanitation, I'm sure Suman sir will touch upon this a little later. Again, in sanitation, we have made significant progress, perhaps barring one or two districts or areas. Our coverage of sanitation is pretty impressive and I think encouraging. But then again, only 2% of the sanitation effluents are treated before discharging. All right. So I think these are kind of two very fundamental points we need to reflect and think about. Then let me jump to the next kind of a governance space, because I remember in 1997, the Mar-del Plata conference specifically talked about, if I quote, in the field of community water supply and sanitation, special emphasis should be given to the situation and the role of women. All right. Now, the whole idea of that, 80s decade was that the drudgery should be minimized, so the women's role should be emphasized. Now, today, those threats, those challenges still remain, and then climate change has imposed new norms, new challenges, across diverse environment in Nepal as well as elsewhere. Particularly water users, if you think about small farmers, if you think about women, if you think about urban poor, if you think about, the marginalized. And then if you look at the governance space, and then this is something I share with you based on a research that I've just completed, particularly on floods in the Chure rivers in the Tarai, where, I looked at 50 years of minutes of discussions between Government of Nepal and Government of India's officials. Now, what interestingly, of course, this is one territory, one example of the space, perhaps a representative one, no doubt. What we essentially find is as preponderance for structural solutions. It is male dominated. It is dominated by engineers and particularly, the government officials on both sides. The formal dialogue seems to kind of accept that degradation of environment is kind of an externality, is development intervention, and that we should be okay with the if I use
Mr. Dixit, if you could try to focus on one or two messages because we are almost done with the time. Yeah.
So the point, therefore, I'm trying to say is, you see, the government of Nepal perhaps needs to focus on the state of women. If I again come back to WASH, this male-dominated, masculine sort of a decision space where women have roles or no roles. If you look at the time women spend in, for example, collecting water, productive activities like WASH, subsistence farming, livestock, and multiple other choice, one statistic says it's about 200 million hours every day. So how much that number translate into, for example, Nepal case? So perhaps, just to emphasize again on the point of, the importance of WASH, I think for government of Nepal, I think what we need to do is to perhaps pursue some transformative economic and political opportunities that will allow women to take a much greater role, more creative and sort of engaged role in governance and decision-making space.
Thank you. I think very clear message is inclusive solutions and move away from masculinity. I think these are the keywords, and also transformative solutions. These are the three keywords we can capture. Of course, you will have opportunity to add more later on. Yeah. Now I will move to the Suman sir. How should the government delegates be prepared for making its presence in the UN Water Conference effective in generating international support in our favor, especially in the context of water-related SDGs? Primarily SDG 6, and of course beyond that, because all the 17 SDGs are related to water. Would you like to share your thoughts, please?
Yes, thank you, Vishnu sir. I really appreciate this opportunity given to me. And I think this is, like you said, the UN Water Conference is being held after nearly 40 years. So it's going to be a real good event for everyone, like, even for that. And as you said, I really agree with that, the water agenda, especially the WASH agenda, that's mostly covered in SDG 6, spans this is not limited to SDG 6, but rather spans across all the SDGs. So you cannot talk about ending poverty or having a well developed lifestyle or increased production or gender equality and good education without good wash. Because we have seen that in schools, education qualities really deteriorate when you don't have good water and sanitation in schools, especially particularly for women, for girl children. They have to drop out from school every month for 4 or 5 days when there's no good sanitation facilities. Or, we cannot have good health because of the malnutrition, because the worms are inside your body and the worms are eating even if you provide them with good nutrition. And unless you have a good water that's devoid of parasites and hookworms and good sanitation to support that, then that's all a problem. So one of the first agenda I think we'll have to demonstrate as a country is that water and sanitation extends or expands beyond SDG 6. And it has a far-reaching effect on many aspects of health and productivity and income and growth. So that must be one agenda that we must carry on. Secondly, like others also mentioned also mentioned was, and I will carry on further on that Nepal must exhibit its successes since the SDGs were declared and after the MDGs was over. So these exhibits would be like, how much extra coverage you had on water, how many more people did you bring into, the coverage area, provide them with the service, because one of the agenda is leaving no one behind. So if you're not leaving anyone behind, then you have to have everybody in the system loop or system catchment or system coverage. So that's one agenda that the government has to do. One thing we can exhibit is the ODF, the sanitation for all agenda. It's a basic sanitation. And another agenda is like things like that we have succeeded in like implementing over the region, even in the Asian countries. It's like the MIS system, the NWAS system, national wash systems, an MIS system of integrated management services that we can provide to water and sanitation that we have been successfully piloting. So these are some of the areas that we must be focusing on. We must also build upon some very good case studies. And one of the good things that, before I forget to mention, what Nepal could also exhibit is a large amount of domestic financing it has been able to bring into the sector development. Like, for example, the small towns water supply supported by ADB, the people are funding up to 35 to 50% of project cost, capital cost financing, and the total of the OPEX. So those are some of the agenda that Nepal can build on as success stories and present to the world, right? And say that we have been successful on that. Now, doing that, I think the next option will be now moving on to saying where do we want, where Nepal wants to move ahead and what Nepal wants to achieve. So like we want to move into next generation challenges of water and sanitation. For example, we want to make the service, you can have a good service. So everybody wants what? Like everybody wants clean water at convenient places, continuously with better consumer service and affordable cost, like that's the 5 Cs. So this is what water supply is about. Everyone wants some at convenient places that you have clean water that they can provide it with a good customer service, and this is continuous, and you can have an affordable cost, a reasonable cost. This is what has to be done, and because the next generation challenges means that then we have to improve upon the water quality, upon like this sir mentioned, the functionality status of our systems, that the systems are functional, providing good service. The systems are continuous 24/7 systems, so that this contamination occurs, and then you have water supply systems. Now the coverages are measured in terms of community taps. People have to walk 15 minutes or 30 minutes to get a bucket of water sometimes. So given that, or even 5 minutes or 7 minutes, you should have a tap inside your house. It's a basic thing, like have to have tap inside your house. Your toilets, we have declared ODF, but our toilets are not up to the standard. You don't know whether waste after the toilets are being are not properly serviced. The waste is not properly serviced. So these are next generation challenges that we're facing in good sanitation. Our people are moving and migrating to cities. The town populations are growing, the city populations are growing. This meaning that our rivers are getting dirtier and they have to be clean. So there has to more,
Yes,
you
sir.
have to bring in more investment into the sector. Sure,
Yes, there are many issues, sir. So like you
Yeah, I'm
rightly
trying to finish.
mentioned, 3, 4
So that's
points.
what
The
I'm
last point, please. Yeah.
So what we'll do is first we have to exhibit our achievements. Next is we have to dwell upon our next generation challenges, and then say how we can contribute to the world to the Boston side development. Those are the 3 areas, and you can get some things into that, and then define it. That's how you
Thank you,
can
sir.
compile it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
I think very interesting point is WAS is not only WAS is an entry point for all the SDGs. That's I think catchy point, and that's really makes sense to me. And that's really good point. And also build on our success stories, and also highlight that Nepal government's commitments is demonstrated through a large investment in OPEX, though we are taking international, support in terms of CapEx. That's, I think, really good points among others. Thank you, sir. I will come back to you again later, so to hear more about the things. Now I will go to Manohara, ma'am. Being at the IWMI for the last couple of years, and also having a good understanding of international landscape through the donors, engagement and others. And also the IWMI is also pitching a new transformative future water security agenda in this conference through the very rigorous processes. So what water governance is highlighted in that agenda as well? Transformative future water security agenda of the IWMI. So in that context, what are the Nepal's strength on water resources governance? Now, how should we communicate it to the international community to win their confidence? Because the governance really matters when we are looking for international support. Would you please be able to highlight on those aspects? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are. First of all, let me thank you, the organizer, for giving me this space. Really pleased to share my perspective. I see the Nepal, first question is Nepal strength on water resource governance in 3 ways. One is a system, a new federal system, system transformation, I would say, and the second is policy and legislation provision, and also third is the institutional dynamics. So if we talk about the system change or system transformation point of view, Nepal Constitution 2015 that institutionalized the federal system of government along with the country commitment to sustainable development goal offer a lot of opportunity for bottom-up, inclusive and equitable water resource management to achieve water security for all. This is first point. Because in the federal system, for example, role and responsibility, jurisdiction for water resource management has been shared among 3 levels of government. We have a local level, provincial level, and federal level. So more role are devolved or delegated to water supply to local government on water supply, irrigation, watershed management. So this role, if implemented properly, it's really new opportunity for sustainable water resource management, also for development. So second point is that a new constitution, again, I go back to the constitution provision, there are clear principle of gender equality, social inclusion, social justice, right, accountability, and non-discrimination. So implementation of this principle as a student of governance, these are also part of governance principle, but if it is implemented, they are implemented properly with a very much focus on water resource governance as a development, as a not only development, also for environment sustainability and people development, it will achieve a lot. In the structure wise, at least 40% of women in the new local government, especially local government, are represented by women. Ajay sir already highlighted the role of women in also natural resource and water. Besides that, there is a inclusion in a political institution. This gives us a lot of opportunity, which should be highlighted. So from the point of policy, water resource governance in Nepal is very much globally also multi-scale, multi-level, multi-actor processes. If we looked at Nepal case, good example are there. Water resource management, access, use have both. There are customary tenure, water tenure, and also formal water tenures. in terms of, if you look at the customer practices and community-based practices, Nepal can offer a lot. User group approach or community-based natural resource management, water management, or drinking water supplies, sanitary system are uniqueness of Nepal. And this can also one of the best example that Nepal should highlight in the UN conference as a good part of water governance, because community-based approach like more than 40,000 water user and sanitary supply groups community, more than 20,000 forest user groups. You know, there are many community-based groups that are contributing a lot to the water conservation use and also use for multiple purposes, including drinking, agriculture, and also irrigation. I said. So third point in terms of policy is that gender equality and social inclusion is Nepal uniqueness, because unlike other country, I don't know, I'm analyzing other country policy, but I found that Nepal is very much ahead in terms of having this gender equality, social inclusion policy in the National Development Framework and also sectoral framework. These are the some sort of strength that Nepal has in terms of governance. Third point, I just briefly point out the institution point of view, briefly, public institution, private institution, and community institution relation point of view. As I said, there are various community institutions and also public institution, private sector actor. There is a much interaction between these actors at scale in order to understand also sometimes the challenge around the water use, and also there are conflict. But the way this multi-stakeholder platform discuss and the dialogue on water issue also gives some sort of opportunity to tackle this governance issue around the water. So you want to ask also a second question, Dr. Professor?
Oh, yes, please. Second is also quite related to this one.
Okay.
So in this context, if there are anything missing, of course, you highlighted a good points about what Nepal needs to highlight. If there are anything missing, you can also edit here.
Yes, just the highlighting point is that, yeah, definitely new governance system of the state, and then its implication on the natural resource management is really an opportunity to highlight, because it gives a lot of opportunity in order to understand or promote the inclusivity and also equitable natural resource and water resource management. Second point is that since the system has changed or a new governance system in place in the overall country context, federalism, there are also some sort of gap in terms of capacity gap, in terms of data gap, you know, understanding the role of women in water resource management, for example, a role of how the climate change impact in water resource. Now, this kind of understanding is very much need to be developed in order to make a policy and plan that are really tackling the current issue, emerging issue brought up by the new phenomena such as the climate change. So
thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, madam. Maybe I will get back later also with you for missing items, if any. So I just among many other things, what you clearly highlight is the system transformation of the governance system is an opportunity for achieving inclusive water security. And Nepal is committed for the sharing the roles responsibility among the different sectors, and also the success stories and natural resource management, for example, community forestry, farmer managed irrigation systems. They are our strengths, and also the demonstration that we can work better governance through mobilizing community. And finally, the commitment to the inclusivity of gender, social diversity, among others, through the JC policies are our key strength. Thank you. Now I will go back to Rajendra Kishore Kshatri sir. Based on prior experience of your involvement in international negotiations, what are our strengths in international negotiation? What lesson do we have in terms of what needs to be focused in the forums or platform like this? Would you like to share your thoughts, sir?
Thank you, Vishnuji. In fact, before I jump into your question on what would be the strength of Nepal, I would like to elaborate little about the UN system. Why? Because you are talking about international negotiation, and that international negotiation relating to the UN system is a little bit different than what we really understood. In fact, the technology, research, and monitoring have always played pivotal role in the water-related issues in bringing forward the negotiation process. In fact, the UN do this through 3 lines of work, that is informing policy, monitoring and reporting, and inspiring action. When we are talking about international negotiation in UN system, that relates when an international agreement is about to come. Each such agreement must pass through a number of phases, each of which comprises some sort of negotiation activities. There are about many phases of activities in the life cycle of a model of an agreement. When I say agreement, it is a multilateral treaty or convention that relates to water or anything else. The preparatory phase itself trigger the negotiation process. However, the gestation period is too long in bringing the content itself. So the main negotiation phase is related to the adoption of or defining of the content and the adopting of the agreement itself. In informal language, we call it engagement and wedding, in fact. Then the ratification phase and preparatory work of program by signatories, that we call it in fancy level, and coming into force, bringing into force and the early implementation of the agreement, we call it adolescence, and full implementation and negotiation of amendments and protocol to the agreement, we call it maturity or procreation. So the major negotiation will again be held in bringing the agreement in line of implementation and try to review those provisions who became obsolete because of the long gestation period and the implementation process, and other important element that had been missed during the end of the life cycle of bringing the agreement itself. So it is very important to understand that a very long gestation period took place in the preparation of documentation. Generally, there are 2 institutions that they work for the UN legal codification, the International Law Association, ILA, which is a non-governmental association of lawyers, and the International Law Commission, which is a subsidiary body of the UN. So generally what happens is what happens is the participatory country or the negotiating country will not be involved directly in creating the content and the provision of the agreement as such. So establishing objective issues and negotiating agenda has far-reaching consequences for the prospect, process, and product of the negotiation. They are essentially determined by the basic concerns of the negotiating players, which they might, flag out during the plenary session, or they might have some sort of meeting in camera. In the case of a global UN convention, when we are talking about UN system, the initiation and preparatory work leading to the opening of a formal negotiation in the specific and designated committee, which I already stated about the role of the ILC and ILA. The choice of the organizational setting that also determines the procedural rules and general culture of negotiation, as well as the type of participation. Preparing for a negotiation itself took a year-round function, and the negotiation itself will take too long. So participating in one particular session will not end up the whole negotiation. So it's a continuing process. And to my mind, if I remember correctly, Nepal has not, participate continuously to those negotiation round in the UN committee itself. So to my mind, if I need to, rate the strength of Nepal in the UN system itself, it is very hard where I can put Nepal into a particular, place. It is very difficult. But I should admit that there are some sort of negotiation anxiety within the participant who are attending the meeting itself. So what we need is to diffuse the negotiation anxiety first. The other issue is the negotiation without, required preparation itself is a waste of time and a waste of money. So what we should know is what we really intend to do. And we must know what would be the consequence if really, if a real issue Nepal can put forward on the table itself. So these sort of thing are there. When we say about the negotiation in the global context, when I say global context, it's the UN system itself, then it is very difficult. I mean, even Nepal participate, it is not alone. I mean, the similar, countries might consolidate the voice, and they can go behind Nepalese context. So it is not alone. I mean, Nepal would not be alone in a forum. But when you talk to the bilateral issue, then it is a different scenario, because when we talk about strength, then a state geographical position might be one of the strength one can really talk about. So to determine its positioning on negotiation, it is
So
not.
maybe we'll get back to you again later in the last, maybe one more point you can add, then we'll go to the next one, and we'll come back again at the end to you, or in between you can add on. One more point if any left, sir.
No, I mean, this is what we need to know, that we should not afraid.
Okay.
But walk away is there always.
Thank you, sir. I think the key thing is, we should diffuse the anxiety of the persons who are involved in the process, because the preparatory phase itself is too long and sometimes we already lose our energy, and we should be able to find the like-minded partners or the countries, or the maybe either geographically or in terms of LDCs or whatever it is, so that we can align better. We will not be alone. I think these are the key takeaways I can take from your remarks. Thank you, sir. And of course, among others. So I will get back to you again in the later stage. Now, before that, let me go to Prakash, Kumar, Suvedi, sir, because you also have the similar experiences in the international forums. Would you like to add some missing things in the Rajendra sir's remarks, and also describe a bit more focused on the UN system, also like international negotiation in general, and this kind of conference also might be different. So since you've given your experience, you may be able to differentiate and highlight the things, sir. Please.
Thank you, Professor, and namaste to all the participants. I have given two questions. So the first thing is that what is the strength of our international negotiation? Well, the strength varies from subject to subject. If we are talking about the subject like water resources, our expertise or our experts within the government and without the governments are very well knowledgeable. So when we are going to negotiation in this topics like water, I think that we have a lot of strength in terms of knowledge. So let me just stop in that way. Now talking about the UN system, I would like to approach your question from two different angles. The first thing is that the delegation itself. If we go to the international forums, we always see that the Nepalese delegation is one of the smallest, if not the smallest. I checked with my former colleagues from the ministry, and I found that the delegation that we have put this time is quite sizable, and also it is representative of various government agencies that are related to water, and also to take the cue from the intervention of Mr. Ajay Dixit and Madam Manohara Khadka. It is also gender balanced. I see a lot of women in the team. So it looks nice in that sense, but still I see one lacuna or lacking in this composition of the delegation, given the importance of the subject and given the way this UN Water Conference is functioning, that at the end of the day, we are coming with a declaration which has more of a commitment and declaratory importance. We would have loved to see the delegation, though secretaries are very important person in our system. I would have loved to see this delegation being led by a minister for a long-term political ownership of the issue and whatever the outcome of the UN conference. So there I see one small lacking in this delegation. Another thing is that the experience sharing that Suman, Sharma said, and also Manohara Khadka said about this, all the achievements we have done in Nepal. Those experience sharing are very important thing, and that can be done in formal forum also, and that can be done informally in the side events also. I have noted in your background paper that Nepal is participating in one side event. What is the theme of the side event also is important, but we are sure that the theme will be to manifest our strength in the area. But also I would suggest the delegations that they will be alert to the side event of other countries and share the experiences from other countries' presentation, manifestation there also. Now, I would like to approach this, our strength in the UN system from another perspective also. That is, this UN system, the commitment, Rajendra sir was talking about the process of the formation of international law in the UN system. But what I see is that this conference is not going to end in producing any law. We are going to have an outcome document, which is more of a declaratory significance. But the significance doesn't end at the UN conference. It is much larger process. What I've found being 4 years as Nepal's ambassador in one of the UN headquarters is that our commitments to multilateral diplomacy is more at the project level, not at the strategic level. The bureaucracy, the NGOs, they are very happy. Okay, after the if we go to this UN conference, the UN experts might come. They might help us in this area. A project will come. We can work in the project. We can make a small differences in a small micro level, or maybe we will be invited to go to another meeting another time. So this project level mentality is very strong, and the strategy or policy level mentality is lacking somewhere. So for that, what should be done is that the delegation, the ministry, they have to come back and go to the umbrella organization with the country, like National Planning Commission is very important in this regard. Okay, these are the outcome document. This is the outcome document of the UN Water Conference. These are the commitments made by the international community. Among those commitments from Nepalese perspective, these are very important. We are prioritized in this way, and this should be reflected our national development plan. This should be reflected in our in the way the resources are allocated for our development. So if we don't do that, if the Ministry of Water Resources, the secretary who is representing us in the UN now, will not do that after coming back from New York, then this lofty words, the big statements will only be of the significance of academic significance, but not this. It will not put any positive impact on the livelihood of the people. So this thing that whatever the commitments are, what are our priorities in those commitments, and how we are going to translate it in the national development agenda. That is very important. That is a very long-term ongoing process, and that somehow I see that many Nepalese ministries and many Nepalese participants lack. I would also like to point another thing is that I just in 1 or 2 days I looked at this. I scanned some of the documents, preparatory documents of this conference, and I also scanned the outcome document of the previous water conference 46 years back. There are many cross-cutting issues. There are reference to the United Nations Environmental Program, Habitat. There are references to the Sendai Framework of Disaster Management, and all these things. So who is the repository of this information inside Nepal? This is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So when you go back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and started talking about water resources, WASH, and all these things, sometimes the bureaucrat there may not understand the significance, the core significance of the issue, or sometimes they may be overbearing and start talking their own thing. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has to be taken into the loop so that these cross-cutting issues at the international level are better coordinated at the national level also. So these are two points, sir, I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very efficient, very timely. Thank you. I highly appreciate it. If I try to take a couple of keywords from your, sharing knowledge, our strengths, reasonable size of and also inclusive delegates, that reflects a lot of things, and also the suggestions to focus on other countries' side event and learn from that, and then finally need to move or shift our thinking from the project level to the strategic level of commitments, and also focus on information as our strength are the key words that I can take from your message. Thank you, sir. Now I will move to Dr. Kumud Acharya, sir. Given your vast international experience in the wide areas and also leading over 450 scientists, is of course a challenging job. And given your experience, Nepal has uniqueness in terms of its Himalayan system, which is affected by climate change in a bit different way than the other systems in the world are affected. For example, we'll have the increase in water availability in short term by melting of glacier and snow, but in the long run, we'll have shortage of water. So this kind of uniqueness is not only our fault, it is some impact of climate change, the cumulative result of the emission from the international community. So how should we highlight these things to get the international commitment, supports, and coordination and collaboration in this area? Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. First of all, I have to provide a disclaimer here. I have not lived and worked in Nepal for over 30 years. So my perspective is going to be broadly outside perspective. And also, it was great to hear previous speakers, and I learned a lot here. So in terms of climate change, I think what Nepal provides is we have a tremendous challenges, obviously, as a result of climate change, and that's happening everywhere in the world. The challenges obviously are long-term water security, energy issues and food. And you talked about immediate availability of excess water, and then over time there'll be less and less water. And then as we run out of water, as the glaciers start to melt, then obviously that'll impact our energy sector as well, right? But this also provides a tremendous opportunity to do work in a country like Nepal, because we have that elevational difference. I mean, what I've lived and worked in the US for a very long time, and we're always looking for a location where you can get data, scientific data to study, to understand the changes in hydrology, right? I have colleagues in China who are studying spending a lot of money on the other side of Tibetan plateau and collecting all kinds of hydrologic data. I don't think that's happening in Nepal on the other side. There are a number of reasons for that. I mean, I'm pretty sure that private sector is working on that a little bit. We have challenges with good governance. We have challenges with instability in government. So because of that, I think that Nepal provides both tremendous opportunity for investment, for research, for collecting data. But I also want to touch on a couple of things, though, because I lead a research institute in the US, and we also raise a lot of money for research every year. The way we raise money for research is, I want to draw an analogy here, how Nepal should prepare itself for getting more funding from UN and other international agencies, right? The first and foremost for me to get a research project funded is to first look at what is the request for proposal is asking for, what sort of problem is trying to solve, that proposal is asking to solve, right? So based on that problems, then I look at my own strength here at the Institute. Do I have expertise in that particular area? And then I put together my experts and expertise. And then I see, okay, how can I provide the best value for that money that is coming to DRI? So, and how do I align my strength with the problem that is out there and the funding opportunity that's out there? So I think Mr. Suvedi, I think he made a very good case, which is how do we align our priorities with that of the funding agency's priorities? So at the end of this UN conference, there's going to be a set of agendas, set of topics the UN is interested in solving for developing countries. Then how do we align ourselves? And so I heard about past successes. That's a great point. When I write a proposal to the National Science Foundation, the first thing I have to write is, how did I use the previously funded money? What are my successes? I start from there. So that's important. Then how do I provide that? How do I tell the funding agency that the money that is being invested in Nepal will be put to good use, right? So, and unless I provide that return on investment, the value to the funding agencies, we're not going to get very far. There are numerous challenges in the world. There are a finite amount of money available. So how do we make the case that that money is best spent in Nepal solving problems that provides the best bang for buck, right? So those are the issues. And I also want to touch on a few things that just want to, for awareness purposes. I heard a lot about WAS, water sanitation and hygiene. That is very important. I'm absolutely aware of that. The other thing that is that I didn't hear is there is a lot of talk about contaminants of emerging concerns right now. For example, I was born and raised in Kathmandu. Kathmandu, we have the water, the river waters, or water is very polluted in Kathmandu. And we use that polluted water to grow vegetables and all kinds of things, and we eat that vegetables. And there are all kinds of pollutions, not necessarily like the conventional heavy metals and fecal coliforms and all of that, but there are other contaminants of concerns. PFAS is a big topic globally right now. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, pharmaceutical reagents, all those things that get into our water system and in our soil that get absorbed by our vegetables and our food, and that we eat that food. Even I've done a lot of work in China, and we've sampled in Chinese rivers and lake systems. There's plenty of those contaminants that there aren't even regulations to treat those contaminants. Not even in the US. Even in the US, we don't have robust EPA standards to remove those, or So there are, and sometimes I worry that when the challenges are so limitless. So how do we present Nepalese situation in ways that it becomes very attractive for donor agencies to put money in? And so I think that aligning and providing that opportunities, providing that, explaining the challenges and providing that opportunities, I think will probably go a long way. If I were to fund anything in Nepal, I want to see how do I maximize my funding and how do I get the best result out of it? And that's what we need to be thinking. And one last point I want to make is that everybody from outside is aware that instability, the lack of good governance in Nepal is obviously a hindrance. So I think I'm more of an advocate of a community participated projects where we have local buy-in, the local people participate in projects. I think those projects have much higher chances of being successful than anything else. And one example is the community forestry in Nepal. That is an example why the community forestry in Nepal has done so well. The results, we can all look at the results and learn from there.
All right,
so
sir.
any projects, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's very clear. I think you give an analogy of raising fund for the research, and accordingly that if we can scale that up, it can be at the country level and the broader development level. It's well noted. Thank you, sir. I will come back to you later. Now, I think we have a couple of questions in the maybe concern in the chat box. Let me open them up. First one was a kind of comment rather than a question is, we are looking for the success and strength. Actually, we need to identify our potentials and constraints too, so that we can mobilize international support and collaboration. This is a comment. Maybe I request all the panelists to note this down, and whatever it is relevant, then you can speak out later on at a one go. That's the one thing. So you may highlight what are our, constraints where we need the international support. Maybe those things we would like to hear from you. Second one is related to climate funds. We are the country taking less advantage of the climate funds. So what could be the, key strategies for accessing them? Of course, there are very many difficulties associated with that. If you have any quick thoughts or maybe want to very solid points on this is the strategy which may work based on your experience elsewhere, that we would like to hear later on. Third question is a long question we have here. Let me read it out, or you can also go in the chat box. I wonder what particular examples of transformative and innovative commitments with prospectively Nepal put forward as contribution to water action agenda. Maybe perhaps the Manohara ma'am can, or maybe Ajay sir or someone else would be able to answer that. You may take a note, and all those things are in chat box also. Also, there's another question is how any commitments are aligned, integrated, or divided as responsibilities amongst the government agencies, ministries, departments in water after the ratification, so as to collectively utilize resources, amplify impacts, or avoid duplications. Any examples or any specific thoughts on that? Also, I would like to request the panelists to note them down and take on whatever is relevant to you in the later stage. One more query or comment here is related to, this is an international important platform to us. However, many of the challenges can and should be addressed at the national level. However, for a long-term sustainability of its water resources, Nepal should prioritize several things. These are the suggestions. I think that's fine, well noted. There is one more comment from Mahendra Gurung sir as a suggestions to the delegates. We should focus more on preserving our Himalayan range, which is a perennial reservoir of water. This winter, we had almost no rain. We must draw their attention on the triggering changes that might be coming on. So these are the some of thoughts here. So before going back to panelists to share your thoughts, if anyone has anything to add on as a comment or maybe your thoughts or input to this agenda, you can also raise your hand and speak out directly before I go back to the panelist again. Any other thoughts or questions to the panelist? If not, then I would like to request the panelists to take on whichever, comments or questions is relevant to you and add additional things, please. Maybe Ajay sir, if you want to add something very briefly.
Briefly, yes. I really would like to thank everyone for this, very, very interesting and thoughtful presentations. It's a very broad canvas, and I think perhaps practically not a so deal with every aspect of it. 2 points I just wanted to highlight. Number one, I think we need more national conversation as to have we done now. It was our content. How do you tell our story? How do you go and kind of align our work with this, international, level? That's number one. And second one, I'd like to again echo what the Mr. Suvedi said, I think we just have to move beyond project to strategic level. I think we just are too much focused on projects and on instruments. I think those are important, but I think we need to move beyond into strategic and knowledge level, and then to figure out, what is it that exactly we know, and how do we know, and how do we think we know what we know? These are the kind of questions we need to begin to ask, and that would perhaps bring your role, Professor, as someone who's in the university system, to kind of, bring these questions together and, take it forward. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other panelists now focusing on the, questions or maybe comments raised on the chat box? Couple of things. One is, what are our constraints which need to be highlighted, not only the success stories? And second thing was, related to the assessing the climate fund. If we have some experience and what may work, or what strategy could work there to make our process easy for assessing the climate finance. These are, I think, two specific questions in the chat box.
Professor
So
Vishnu,
far.
can I jump in?
Yes, madam, please go ahead.
Yes. I think good question regarding not only the AHA or strength of the Nepal, but also there are certain challenges. One of the challenges, I think it could be also steered for change, I would say. So sectoral silo, water resource management, for example, or water supply or irrigation management, they're very much connected to other like a food system, biodiversity, ecosystem, energy. In Nepal, very much common phenomena or challenge is that sectoral silo. So every sector want to stay in their own sector, and there is really a bit of area to improve is the coordination, cooperation, and collaboration. That also the emphasized by a new constitution. So how do we make this sector silo? How to break this sector silo? There is a need for bringing sector actors together in a common platform. We really need to focus on the future strategy to promote a multi-stakeholder mechanism that facilitate sector actor together to discuss about the common challenges that water or other sector is facing. Water also linked to other sector, as I said. So maybe one strategy could be to highlight the importance of water, energy, food ecosystem, biodiversity conservation nexus thinking. That could be a potential area for research, and also based on research can be some sort of suggestion, recommendations can be made for policy and practices. This is one point. Another is that, as I said also earlier, a point of view, governance, water governance point of view, representation of, because of affirmative policy action, there has been a lot of change in terms of inclusion of women and marginalized community in a public service and other non-state actor institutions also, but still the participation is the tokenism, right? So how do you enable the women professional scientists and also practitioners across the scale from local to subnational, national level to enable the women professional equally as they have also some idea perspective to, we need to give them a space to talk and also share their experiences. So this a bit of leadership point of view, also capacity to understand the gender inclusivity that provided by the constitution and sectoral policy, including water resource policy. So how to implement this good policy so that that policy also change something concretely in the life of people and also system. So there should be a focus. Third point is that data, as I also, but because definitely the research is a very much important priority also. There has been focus, but again, if you look at the investment and also funding point of view, earlier professor from US also mentioned that we should be very much strategic and convincing, but still what kind of data and how the data is used for policy, capacity building and planning is also a challenge. But this, until and unless there is a practice of evidence-based policy making within the water sector, could be all water resource, irrigation, or water supply, until and unless we practice the evidence-based discussion, capacity building and policy, this whole thinking of transformative change also would not be possible. So we should really recognize the role of science here in making the water policy, for example, and practices very much inclusive and also sustainable and transformative. Yeah, these are some.
Thank you, madam. Maybe before I go to the final question to the panelists, maybe Kumud sir, if you have experience of assessing the climate fund, would you shed some light on that, appropriate strategy for that one?
You know, I personally don't have experience in accessing the climate fund, but I do have DRI, my institute. We have one of the 6 national regional climate centers at DRI. So we do have a lot of climate scientists at DRI. And the way that we, we target these funds is basically, as I said in the beginning, we have to provide that return on investment, right? Not financial investment return, but if with a limited amount of money, what can we provide? What data can we get from Nepal? Nepal, I think, because of our differences, geological difference and elevational difference, it's a tremendous field case to study that climate change. That I think, like, for example, my institute works globally all over the world, but I don't think we have any project in Nepal because we just don't have partners there. And so I think we can make a really good case because of our geographic and climatic variations and the elevational difference, the kind of data that the world community can get from Nepal, in my opinion, is tremendous. So how do we make that case? I mean, that's really important.
Thank you, sir. And just to add on my experience on developing one of the proposal for climate finance, I was involved in the later stage. It was successful. What the look is, is a clear linkage, not only articulation, very clear linkage and evidence that the issue we are proposing is due to the climate change. If we are able to have a clear evidence and linkage with that, they don't support for research. If we have the clear linkage and we plan to propose some interventions and there's a likelihood of success is higher. That's additional learning I have so far. Now, maybe we go to the final round of the panelists. Since there are no more questions, there are only a couple of feedbacks or comments there. Now, if we try to be, based on the discussion so far, if we try to be more focused on in the messaging, maybe I have the same question to the first 3 panelists, Ajay sir, Suman sir, and Manohara sir in order. If you were leading the government in this forum as a lead of the delegate, what 3 messages would you have highlighted to the international community to inform, influence, and generate resources for enhancing water security in Nepal in a very focused way? What are 3 key messages you would have highlighted if you were leading the delegates? Ajay sir, please go ahead.
Well, this is a $60 million question, isn't it?
No, it's actually 61 million.
Well, I think I would highlight this whole point that Dr. Kumud made, that this diversity, this elevation difference is a kind of a repository that can provide, fundamental understanding about how climate, society, ecosystems, and geography are linked. And then that could be, sort of perhaps a major insights lesson for global community to begin to how do we respond to these impacts of climate change. That's number 1. Number 2, it's a bit idealistic. I've been kind of, writing about it for a while. And then, of course, my biggest problem is, we keep on mixing human waste with, fresh water. That's the way we're locked in for the last 500 years. So if one message I want to give, perhaps the global community could take this as a new beginning to say, all right, let's separate it out and then have, sort of a simple, scalable, sort of a technology approach and institutions that will make us, transfer that process. These are the 2 immediate points I can think of. Yeah. Thank you.
Not the third one. Only 59 million so far. Thank you. The next one is next one is for Suman Sharma sir. Same questions to you without repeating with what Dixit sir has mentioned.
That's so difficult. But anyway, I think everything is missing in his head. But I'd like to see that, like what's been discussed, it's important to have we ourselves aligning with the global agenda, but it's also important to have the global aligning with our agenda, right? So it's very important the message we carry there. It means that the entire world appreciates the agenda and carries this as a strategic strategy way forward for this. So I would like to, if I was leading the delegation, I think I would have focused on enhancing investments, requirement to enhance investments at a multiplier level, with a multiplier effect, because the investments are very poor in this sector. Then addressing the next generation issues in water and sanitation management, including cleaning up of rivers, that was already discussed. The rivers are getting dirtier, and the people are moving closer to the rivers, making bigger cities, closer cities. The rivers are getting polluted; they have to be cleaned. The ecosystems has to be maintained, and they'll be providing the lifeline services for downstream communities. This has to carry out, and finding appropriate solutions
Listen.
to the existing problems or new solutions. Those are my 3 takes.
Thank you, sir. Manohara, madam, if there any messages are left with for you.
Yes, I can repeat. I think I would say again the new system, new governance system, new institutional arrangement on created after the federal system, federalism in Nepal. It's really give opportunity for international community. We have to really communicate them that they should invest in Nepal water sector development with focus on delivering good governance that includes transparency, accountability, and also capacity building of all level of government and non-state actor in community institution to understand how the different driver, for example, climate change is impacting on water and what could be the potential and also very much sustainable solution to cope with these changes that Nepal also facing. This is first point. Second point is that again linked to the funding, I was looking at the adaptation, Nepal adaptation framework that also project that like Nepal need USD 47.4 billion is required to implement a priority program, including water resources in us. So including
listen
and livelihood also for next 30 years. So since we don't very much contribute to emission, but we are very much impacted by the change in climate. So we really need to convince and also position ourselves that Nepal water sector also should be considered of the climate financing agenda. Second point. And third point is that going back to this again, the how to strengthen our enable capacity of 3 level of government and also the community, especially those people who are impacted by, negatively impacted by the climate change on water access. So there has not been much data and evidence. Much focus should be on scientific evidences, generation, co-creation with the community and multi-stakeholder of the water, I would say. So to generate evidences and data, use of data for policy and capacity building. So we have to really show that why research is very much important for the sustainable water resource management and uses.
Thank you, madam. And now for the remaining 3 panelists, I have a bit different set of questions given their experience in the different contexts like diplomacy and international negotiations. Like one of the panelists already mentioned our, way of dealing or way of negotiating in the project mode rather than a strategic mode. This is one of the, do and don't do. Similarly, there may be several other things as these are the things we should focus on, we should not focus. So in that case, what are the 2 main do's and don't do's for the conferences or platform like this, maybe so that the country can position better in the international platform? I may start from Rajendra, Kishore, Kshatri, sir. Would you like to share 2 do's and 2 don't do's for our delegates there? If we can tell in that way. Rajendra, sir?
Yes, Vishnuji, if I remember correctly, the UN General Assembly has decided to convene the United Nations Water Conference on the subject of, the midterm comprehensive review of implementation of the objective of the International Decade for Action, Water for Sustainable Development 2018 and 2028, right? And the SDG goal number
6 maybe.
Is to
Hello, I think I'm missing the sound. It's only me or
No sound.
hello, sir? It looks like some issue with the internet connectivity. So while he's restoring his connection, we may go back to other panelists, maybe Prakash, Suvedi, sir. Would you please highlight those do's and don't do? Rajendra, sir, your sound is
sustainable management of water. In fact, the water ability itself is a global. What we can expect from on ensuring the country that that it has already met. Yes.
Hello. Rajendra, sir.
Hello.
Rajendra, sir.
Sunincha. Hello.
Yes, we can hear now. There was disconnect in between. Would you please mind repeating the key things? Sorry, we missed you.
Yes. All right. I mean, the General Assembly decided to convey the meeting on the United Nations Water Conference that focus on the midterm comprehensive review of implementation of the objective of the International Decade for Action. That means it is more focused to the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal number 6, that is to ensure the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So the the concern is that this conference is expected to adopt the water action agenda as the main outcome, representing voluntary commitment of the countries itself and the stakeholders to meet the global water related goals and targets. So while participating in this conference, what is the intent behind this participation? What exactly Nepal will focus on this issue? How they are really, committed to their previous commitment, and what are their future actions? So, in fact, this time the United Nations is more focused to bring a bold commitment by all in order to transform how it manages its water resources and deliver water and sanitation services to the people at large. This could be the challenge that Nepalese delegation need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would go to Suvedi, sir, please. Do you have anything to add here?
Well, not much thing to add, but do's and don'ts, those depend upon the theme of the meeting. This water in this water conference, the water experts will know more about what to be done and what are not to be done. But just my general experience, I would just like to say one thing, that in a big UN conference like this, there is one plenary meeting is going on, and there are a lot of thematic meetings are going on in different rooms. So what I suggest is that leader of the Nepalese delegation has to assign the task very properly to his delegates, that you have to be in plenary, you have to be in this side, this parallel session that is in your subject. So when we have a delegation of this size, we must be able to cover all the discussions in all the parallel sessions. That is what I would like to emphasize here. And one question I got it here is that I just found it a little funny, because it has been my experience also heading a multilateral mission for years, घुम्न पाए पुग्यो जस्ता delegate. Yes, not all delegates are like that, but we have a very big number of delegates also who come in that mood. But rest assured, it is not only Nepali problem. When I was there in UN in Vienna, in third or fourth day, then I see that in a week-long sessions, I see that all the delegations from all the countries are coming in the plenary with shopping bags, with a lot of things they have bought, they have gone to the city. So this is not only a Nepali problem, this is a universal problem. Then we have to live with this. And there is another one also question that came from Mr. Mahendra Gurung, and that he has highlighted one area that we should really give more focus in the UN. There are two ways of giving focus in the UN system. One is that we can incorporate those ideas in our national statement. This is the right time to raise the issue and right time to incorporate those in the national statement. But in the UN system, that at the end of the day, when we are coming with the outcome document, those outcome documents were being negotiated in New York for a very, very long time. And those long time, there should be a very intense communication between our mission in New York and the Ministry of Water Resources in Kathmandu. I have always seen that communication is always weak because of many reasons. We don't have sectoral experts back in New York, and the ministries in Nepal are always too preoccupied with the day-to-day issue, and they don't have the time, they don't have the energy to think about the international conference till the very day of the conference is starting. So in that sense, that putting our input in the negotiation process for the outcome document for the last 6 months, 7 months is rather weak in our system. So maybe in the future, we should also think about strengthening this system more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being very, very specific. And the same questions now goes to Kumud, sir, if you have anything to add here, or any other thing to add as a final words.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. There are a lot of experts here. I think one other thing that I was thinking while Mr. Suvedi was speaking was, I wonder whether we can align with some other countries with similar problems that we have, and then maybe team up, so that, when we, for example, Bhutan may be part of India, maybe China, other places, Pakistan, they also have issues related to very similar to ours. Maybe teaming up with others, and that will help to highlight that problem better. And hopefully that will then generate interest in funding. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And also thank you to all the panelists for being very, very precise, focused in messaging, and also complying with the time. Sorry, I have been a bit straightforward and a bit tight in terms of keeping time. This is my problem, actually, because we have to keep in 1.5 hours as committed. We really appreciate your thoughts, and we will synthesize it and provide to the delegates who are participating there. And hopefully this will help us to make the position paper further better, which we are aiming to finalize sometime tomorrow and then send to the printout. I think Manohara ma'am, myself, and several other colleagues are involved in this process as well. And before wrapping it up, maybe if someone from department is here, or from ministry, if someone is here, maybe secretary, sir, let me see whether he's here. And if you'd like to make a final remarks or some final reflection in 2 minutes, we will invite you. Or maybe Sushil Acharya, sir, who is the DG of Department of Water Resource and Irrigation. Would you like to reflect on the discussion in 2 minutes time? I know, because since you are also participating in the in this delegate team. Sushil, sir?
Yeah, maybe secretary, sir, also here. And
okay, Sigdel, sir, if he is here, he will be better, I think. Sigdel, sir. No, I don't see him. No. Is he here? No.
Okay, then
yes, sir. Final 2 minutes for the final reflection on the discussion and how it will be helpful to the delegates team.
Since a long time, UN Water Convention, second UN Water Convention is going to hold, and we are going to, our Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigations has been designated as the focal ministry from the to represent Nepal's. And till date, the secretary of the ministry is leading the delegations and government of Nepal with the help of the IWMI is preparing the position papers which provide the overall perspective of Nepal's water sectors and provide the general frameworks to prevention the convention and side events. In this regard, so for the renowned personality, in the international area, we got a lot of suggestions, feedbacks, which is very important for our meaningful participations and finally, as mentioned by the Professor Pandey, for finalizations of the position papers. So I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the panelists from the government sides, and also I would like to thank all participants for participation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this, thank you so much once again to all the panelists and who are joining from Nepal and also from far away from US. We really appreciate it for your very, very valuable contributions and inputs to the government of Nepal, because this will be an input to that process. And also, if I would like to take two interesting points, of course, there are many interesting points. One I like myself is a remark from Suman Sharma sir. We not only align to the global issues, global agenda, but also we should be able to globalize our local agenda. I really like it. Of course, a lot of efforts and strategies required. That would be, I personally like it a lot. And finally, a lot of universal things are not always good, like mentioned by Suvedi. Many other delegates also enjoy in different way. But that's, even though that is universal, that's not good. We should participate there in an effective way. With this, we would like to conclude here. And like always, before wrapping it up, we would like to announce the next episode of the event. Let me share you. Okay. Our next episode would be focused on in the groundwater, enhancing sustainability of groundwater irrigation system through clustering approach. We will have Deepak Bharadwaj, a senior agricultural engineer with the Department of Agriculture. He has demonstrated, I have also visited that area personally some time back in Tarai, and they are doing a great job. And we requested him to share their experience along with the way forward to the future. He would be sharing these interesting topics in 12th Baisak or 25th April at 8 p.m. Nepal time. Please book in your calendar. We'll be sharing details in due course. With this, thank you so much. Have a good day to Kumud sir and someone from the different time zone. Have a good night to those who are in Kathmandu or even in Indonesia. Thank you. Namaskar.
Very much.
Namaste.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
We enjoyed that very much.
Thank you so much.
We really enjoyed that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.